as we're closely moving into the month of February, have you been sticking to your reading goals? Maybe you had set a smaller goal of wanting to read a chapter before bed, or maybe you set a more ambitious goal of wanting to read a book a week. When I was a kid, I really wanted to be one of those kids who would always have a book around. They would always be reading, they wouldn't be on their phone. The only interest they had was books. Now, that didn't happen when I was a kid. I first started reading properly a year ago. And I definitely think there is a lot of reasons why I never got into reading when I was younger, and I think if I had known these things now, it would have been much easier for me to start reading. And if you're still here and still want to learn how to become a reader, listen up. Do you actually want to become a reader? You're probably looking at me and seeing, of course I do. That's why I'm watching this video. But is this just something you want to do to add to the list of things you can show off? Or is it because you genuinely enjoy reading? I obviously know there is 100% a learning curve with starting reading, because whenever you start on something new, it's definitely, there is that whole challenge barrier of wanting to start, but it's just really difficult to get into because you're not used to it, and there's a high chance of failing during this little era when you first start out. I think we all have a lot of things we would love to do, but we just know deep down we won't stick to. For me personally, I have been interested in learning multiple different languages. I can only currently speak English and Danish, and I would really like to expand to something like Japanese and German, etc. But I know that wanting to learn, especially Japanese, is just gonna be too complex for me to learn right now. It's not really at the top of my priorities, and I know I will simply not stick to it if I start trying to learn Japanese. But then again, if I really wanted to do it and I really wanted to commit to it, I absolutely could. I just need to make the time and I need to make the effort to learn the language. You know, instead of being like, oh, I'll just download Duolingo and do a Duolingo class every now and then, like, I will not stick to it in that. Like, if I really wanted to learn Japanese, I would sign up for classes. Specific Japanese classes, or even online courses. Just anything that isn't just like a simple language app is what I would do. Now, I think everybody is capable of doing pretty much anything they want, and I think reading is no exception to this. But I really want you to think of, why is it you want to start reading books? Is this because you want to show this off to your friends that you're currently reading a book? Is it because some person recommended you a book they read? Or do you just simply want to try this out? I think reading is one of the top tier hobbies slash things you can do in your free time that's always gonna have a lot of benefits and not very many negatives, because it's really simple. You buy a book and you read the book. The only hassle is trying to find a time to read that book. Then I also think there are definitely different types of readers. Do you just want to read for fun? That is completely fine. That's what I do 90% of the time. Or are you really interested in learning a lot of things from different self-help books? Whatever they might be, you kind of need like your why in a way of why you want to read. But obviously you should read whatever you want. How do I read? Not every week is the same, so my reading will vary as well. You know, some mornings I will start out by waking up and reading a chapter of my book, and I'll get out of bed straight away. And some mornings that doesn't happen. I lay in bed for an hour being on my phone and being not productive that morning slash day. And both are completely fine, but I definitely do think I try every single day to schedule a certain time, like a rough time every single day that I can spend reading. And I definitely think something you can also implement that I also do is have a book wherever you go. If you're really new to reading and you want to invest a little bit of money in it, I really highly recommend getting a Kindle. Of course, you don't have to get a Kindle if the digital screen is not your thing, but a Kindle definitely makes a lot of convenience, especially if you want to travel with multiple books at once. I think the Kindle is really great, or just any e-reader in general. You can also use it on your phone if you want, if you're into that for some reason. So that's also an option for you to do, but I generally advise always have a book with you so you can read in those like small 5 to 10 minutes. You know, those 5 minutes you're waiting for your doctor's appointment, or taking a 5-minute break before you drive home, or just anything really where you can just squeeze in a little bit of reading. That is so important. It's going to really help you become addicted to reading almost. And I also generally think I I am more calmer throughout my day when I have my breaks that I am reading in those breaks instead of watching YouTube, just anything really. I find my breaks a lot more calmer and more relaxed when I am reading a chapter of my book instead. Does this always happen? No, but I generally feel better when I do it, so it definitely motivates me to read more because I know it's gonna give me a good feeling in comparison to either neutral or a badder feeling. And something I also think is super important is having a set routine. So for me, if I don't read the entire day, I will always have my nighttime routine. And a quick rundown of my nighttime routine, I will always start by taking a shower, and then I'll do my skincare. I think the shower is really what starts out my routine for the night. And then once I am done with my skincare and I'm out of the shower and I'm all dressed in comfy clothes, I will usually do a 5 to 10 minute clean of just smaller things, like the smaller tasks you have to do. Like for me, I like to set up my breakfast and I like having a workout clothes if I'm gonna work out the next day. It's just a simple outfit for the following day. And then once I'm in bed, comfy and relaxed, usually with my humidifier on, with lavender essential oil because it's amazing and it does actually help me with my sleep, I will put on a TV show. Now, depending on what time I get into bed, I might not do this at all, or I will just watch one episode. Usually I try to limit it to just one episode per night. Obviously sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, it just really depends. And then I'll start reading. Because I think doing it the other way around can be difficult, because then I'll read and then I'll be really into the book, but I also want to watch an episode of my show. But obviously you do what works best for you. And then once the episode is over, I will just read and read and read until I get tired and go to bed. That is like my ideal routine, and I know I will be getting a little bit of reading in even if it's just 1 or 2 pages. It is still something and definitely worth it. Now I will say 9 out of 10 times I do pass out after like 1 to 2 pages, sometimes even less. But as I said, it's really important to have a set schedule where you will be getting in a little bit of reading. Goals and habits can either make you or break you. You cannot set an unrealistic goal when it comes to your reading goal. And generally you shouldn't set unrealistic goals because, you know, it makes sense. We don't want to set unrealistic goals. A great example of this, because for me, I thought I had to set a large book goal. I thought I had to set it for at least 200 books because all my favorite booktubers have read over 200 books a year. You do not have to do that, I promise you. I definitely think having a goal is a great idea. Like, you want to read a little bit before bed, or at 3 p.m. I will read for 30 minutes as the bare minimum. And while it's certainly possible to read 200 books a year, it is not realistic for you to set such a huge goal. You can if you want to, but I highly don't recommend it, because right now we need to focus on building the habit of reading. Habits are very important. I do not think every single thing in your life that you want to do, you have to do every single day to a certain extent. Like, I wouldn't go to the gym 7 days a week for the rest of my life. I definitely prefer having a more set schedule of working out hard 4 to 5 times a week and then lighter exercise throughout my day. So if you're really invested in starting your reading journey, I want you to do this simple thing. Pick up a book you want to read. I do not care what book it is. I don't care if it's a fiction. I don't care if it's non-fiction. I don't care if it's a children's book. And you just take the book, sit down, and you start reading. It's that simple. And also going back to the setting a set schedule of when you are reading, you could say, I want to be in bed by 3 p.m. and I want to read for 30 minutes at the bare minimum. I think that's great, and you definitely want to make sure when you are reading you have enough time. Like, you're not forced to like start exactly at 3 p.m. and you have to end before 3:45 because you have to go to the gym by 4 p.m. something like that. Like, make sure you have enough time to read in the reading window you want to read in. But I also think timers can be good and bad, because it definitely sets like, oh, okay, I'm only gonna read 30 minutes and when the timer goes off I can go do anything else. Like, yes, it's definitely the same thing like the Pomodoro method, because it can be beneficial for some people, but it can also not be beneficial for other people, because if you're already in the zone of reading, you don't want to be taken out of the reading zone. So really just do what works best for you. Pick a genre you like. Finding a genre you like is very crucial to your book reading journey. I think a great example of this is you can look at what movies/TV shows you like and go from there. So if you watch a lot of romance movies, maybe you'll be really interested in romance books. And the same, like if you're into science movies, sci-fi movies, sorry, then you're probably going to be more into science fiction books and dystopian, etc, etc. Try and think about that. And this does work because every dystopian book I've ever read, I love. If you didn't know, I love dystopian. It's my favorite genre in movies and books. You can also do the booktuber/book talk recommendations, though I usually don't like them. I usually don't love the recommendations, and you definitely have to think of the booktuber that reads a genre you're generally interested in, because I was trying to read romance books and I was watching romance YouTubers, booktubers, whatever, and the genre didn't really interest me. So try and find a booktuber you like and try and read some of their book recommendations. Or you can go on Book Talk and, you know, you can see a little review of the book from there. You can also go on Goodreads and do this. Like, it's really simple. Just try and do it like that. But as I said in my first point, you do need the why. And this is where you need to know what books you want to read. Because as I said, if you want to read a bunch of self-help books, please go ahead. But there's also nothing wrong about reading any old romance book. Another thing you can also do if you're really stuck is if you read a book in your childhood, which I think most people have read some book in their childhood, you can try reread it. That's an option. Enjoy the process. If you miss 1 or 2 days or even a week of reading, who cares? You are enjoying this process for a reason, and you just need to keep going and going and going and making sure you have that set schedule for your day where you will get in some reading, you always have a book with you, and you just make this consistent habit. Reading is such an enjoyable thing, and there's so many benefits from reading, and it is so much more powerful when you are reading about a character in comparison to watching on a movie, because there's a lot more depth to the character in comparison to a movie. Obviously, there's a lot of things in the movie, and one of the most special things, I think, is reading a book and then watching the movie, especially if you haven't watched the movie before. Even if you have, it's so interesting. And even if there isn't any movies or it's just a book, it's just great. I love reading, and I just want everybody to read because it's so good for you, it's so good for your brain, so good for your health. It's just so nice, and I welcome you all in. And of course, everything in life where you are trying to reach a goal for a certain thing, you have to enjoy the process. Because the goal for reading could be like reading 100 books. Obviously the goal is fine, and I don't blame you for wanting to have a goal, but you have to enjoy the reading process. You have to enjoy reading a book and discovering a new book and being like, wow, I love this. Or maybe just picking up a book because you like the cover, and there's no shame in that at all. Though I do recommend you read the back before you buy the book, because, you know, just in case. And I also have a little honorable mention. I did want to talk about the 50-page rule. This is a really simple rule. If you are 50 pages into a book and you're not enjoying it, you can just let it go. You shouldn't read a book you don't enjoy. And obviously you can modify this rule. Maybe you say 70 pages or 80 pages, or maybe even less if you're really not enjoying the book. Give it those 50 pages before you give up on the book. I think that's really important, because sometimes certain books are just really boring in the start and they get better. And I also do think if you're reading a book that's over 500 pages, I recommend giving it 100 pages, because, you know, generally with longer books, they're generally just like a bit slower because there is just a lot more to be added. So I definitely recommend giving those a little bit more love before you give up on them. So that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, maybe you want to like the video, comment down below what you thought of the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of my beautiful face. Please remember to be kind to yourself and others, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!